nobody wants to feel like they're in this pre-prescribed box and like to fit themselves into something. So I always say, do not talk about your framework. Give a custom plan that your program and your course or whatever can provide. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like do one-on-one coaching and do private, custom builds the whole time. Your offer can provide it, but you want the sales call to feel so custom. That's the reason why I say don't put your framework in it, because the client only has one problem, but you're selling them on five. You think you're doing a value add, but they're like, wait, I don't want any of that.
Welcome back to the second of 2 episodes featuring Dielle Charon. At the end of the last episode, and I'm going to introduce her in a moment, right, Jamie?
Yes.
Right. At the end of the last episode, she said that learning sales conversations changed her life. If you have webinars in your business or discovery calls in your business and you want to greatly increase your income, I'm talking like going from a social worker at a university who has to commute 1.5 hours each way, so 3 hours of commute every day, making $29,000 a year. Did you say that's what you started with, DL?
39,000,
39,000. Okay,
Yeah.
a little higher, to
But
now
that's good,
having
yeah.
had 3 years in a row of grossing well over $1 million in your business. If that sounds like the kind of growth you would like to have, well then meet Dielle Charon. She's a certified life coach, a 7-figure sales expert for women of color coaches, and she's the host of the Women of Color Sales Show podcast with over 150,000 downloads. And she runs 2 sales programs, the 5-figure Freedom and 6-figure Liberation, which have served over 300 women of color. We just wrapped up moments ago a phenomenal episode where we got to know Dielle a bit. We got to know about where she came from, how in the world she went from making $39,000 a year as a social worker to where she is now, and some of the, I guess we'll just call them life journeys. In this episode, though, we're going to talk about sales. And DL, you have something called the Power 75 framework. You said you also are down to audit our sales process a little bit. So it seems like in this episode, we're going to have to get a little transparent. I want to share, though, I resonated with that sentence. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here again.
Right? I'm excited to also interview you again and chit chat with you again, though it feels like you're about to interview us.
Right?
I don't know,
Yeah.
Jamie, I'm a little nervous,
Scared.
Jamie. I'm a little
No.
nervous.
It'll be light. It'll be light. Don't worry.
You see,
Okay.
I had to remind myself to change my body language and lean towards the microphone so people could hear me rather than lounge in my
Yes.
chair. Come
All right,
closer
I'm
to the
coming
microphone,
closer.
Jamie. So I had a question, and before we get into everything else, what is the sales unlock, if you will, that more people should be learning? I know it has the AI word unlock, but I wrote that question myself. What's the one thing that you feel like really does change the game, though, for people who have discovery calls or sales calls or webinars?
Well, I would say first do them. I think like there's so many people that don't have any live call component as a part of their business. They want it to be fully evergreen or fully referral based, or I'll see them, write blogs and emails and Instagram captions until they're blue in the face, all to avoid talking to people on a live call. So I would say if you don't have those things, put them in your business will literally double if you just did that. Like if you just did that, your sales would go through the roof. So number one, do them. And then number two, I would say keep it simple. One of the things I talk about when it comes to sales calls is we are told one of two things: to kind of just wing it and be personal and don't try to be salesy. And then the other part is to have like a 14-step script to make sure, you have to say this, and then it's like a tree, and if they said this, then you have to feed into that question and don't leave the call unless they paid. And it's those two extremes, right? Like I call it like the used car salesman being like, wait, I'll slash another $500 off, right?
Right.
Is that energy. And there's another way between both, right, where you don't have to wing it. I've been on I've been on so many sales calls where I wanna buy something, and I could just tell that, and it's from good intentions, like, I could just tell that the person doesn't want to be salesy, so they don't have any process, but then it's like, "Am I leading the call? Are you leading the call? I have questions." I have, like, and then we're kinda in this, like, power play versus, like, that hardcore script that I was talking about. You can ditch both methods, and there is a different way.
I
Nice.
love it.
I like it.
I love it. I'm chuckling to myself because back in my previous business where I taught folks who were working in China how to learn Mandarin Chinese, I had at the very end, after I gave them an option and both options were yes, uh, I would always, almost all the time, say that, like, how about I just stay on, like, we stay on this Zoom call, like, while you authorize the payment. Because, but I had an excuse, which was because I was living in China using whatever payment processor here in the States. I was like, sometimes there's just hiccups and it doesn't work out. So, like, I'll just stay here
Mhm.
while you go ahead and process the payment. And if there's any hiccup, like, I can help get you around it. And, like, that worked very
Most of the
well.
time, yeah,
Yeah.
actually, people were like, "Okay, cool."
But I think it's just that, like, I could feel your authenticity and, like, it was a real thing, like, I could feel that as you were delivering it, and it also made sense, like, logical sense, versus, like, a lot of people don't have that reason and don't have that, like, goal in mind, and you can also feel the energy of that. So I also say, like, I use the example all the time, like, when I was planning my wedding, vendors would say, like, "Hey, it's just easier if I take your card over the phone, or you'll have to do a 3% charge fee if I send you a link, blah, blah, blah." And so, yeah, there could be several logistical reasons that make sense. But if it's more of a pressure reason, I think people could feel the difference.
Mm,
Yeah.
mhm,
People can feel the difference. Prior preparation prevents poor performance is a quote that I
mhm,
stole from a guy named Sean Cannell, and who knows where he
mhm.
got it from. What do you believe makes the difference in a sales call?
Well, I can just kind of share my method here if that's okay.
The Power 75.
Sure.
Well, that's actually a messaging tool. My sales call framework's a little
Ah,
different.
okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
So messaging, and I think this is a good like even point of conversation. A lot of people confuse like marketing versus messaging versus sales, like all of those different things. And I think messaging and marketing are more of the front facing client things. I'm sure you all as ad specialists do a lot of things with messaging. And then what I kind of count as sales is where you're having a conversation with someone. And it could be conversation through email or something else, but it's typically a live conversation, either on a webinar or on a sales call. So my Power 75 framework is great for messaging, which I'll of course talk about. But my sales call process is very simple and it's also pretty intuitive. It's called triage, treatment plan, tell the offer. And so triage, just like how you were to go to urgent care or the doctor and you want to get clear on the problem first. I can't tell you how many times people have been taught to start the sales call off with, "So this is my offer and this is what I'm going to offer you. Do you want to buy it?" It's like, "No, you have to triage the client first, and then you have treatment plan." And this is what a lot of people miss is you don't want to go from problem to solution. You want to offer a treatment plan. So here are the three things that we're going to do together. Here are the three solutions that we're going to solve, and you want each one to be custom to your client. And then you can get into telling about the offer after they agree that the treatment plan is what they want and you don't have to make any edits to it. So triage, treatment plan, tell the offer. It's very social worky because that's my background. That was the process that I used when I had to assess people and I had to get a stranger's trust about very difficult and vulnerable problems pretty immediately. And so that was the framework that I used in order to get someone's trust. And that is the process that I've taught my clients, and they get 100% sales call conversions. That's kind of like the vibe and freedom is you should be aiming for 100% sales call conversions.
Oh,
If a
what?
client Yeah, if a client said no, that's thousands of dollars walking out the window, like something happened. Especially if you're working on part-time hours, every call counts. And so 100% conversions is the goal, not, oh, it burns me up when people are like, "Oh, 30% is great."
No, no,
30%,
no, no. That's bad.
No.
that's terrible, right? That's terrible. Or even 70. I'm like, that other 30% could have kicked you over to 500K, could have kicked you over to whatever income goal. So yeah, I'm very passionate about 100% conversions.
Well, then, can we like camp out here? Because as I interview folks on this podcast, I hear and I learn a lot. But having been in the online course creation space, like I guess the amount I'm learning, it's shrinking somewhat, if that makes sense. Because we interview lots of people, or I guess the amount of new things. Now, I always tell people that 60% like is pretty solid, and you just kind of changed everything that's going on in my brain because you're like, no, we should not be settling for 60%. Did she just say 70%
She
horrible?
said 70% is not even that great.
So what's the difference between a 60% and or 70% and 100% closing rate? And if you say a percentage, I'm gonna hit stop record.
That's such a good question. Like, what is the difference? I see all sorts of things. Oh my God, I've seen all sorts of things. I would say if I were to group it into themes, this is one thing that people get wrong a lot is they say their framework. That's like on their sales page or whatever, they say their framework on the sales call. That will immediately drop your conversion. Nobody wants to feel like they're in this pre-prescribed box and like to fit themselves into something. So I always say do not talk about your framework, give a custom plan that your program and your course or whatever can provide. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like do one-on-one coaching and do private, custom builds the whole time. Your offer can provide it, but you want the sales call to feel so custom and so specific. And it's very simple logic to me. Like if you are a money coach and you're over here, talking about your program and your framework, and part of that program and framework is investing, but the client is struggling with debt payoff, they're like, well, I don't want to pay for something that's not my problem. So that's the reason why I say don't put your framework in it, because the client only has one problem, but you're selling them on five. You think you're doing a value add, but they're like, wait, I don't want any of that other stuff. I'll tell you a little bit of a fail that I had, and you can apply this on webinars too. I tell you a fail that I had. So I had the bright idea to include a coaching certification inside of my program because a lot of people that we would get emails in being like, what if I never coach anybody before? Can I still join your program? And so I said, what if we created a certification or a training program for people? So I was on the webinar, I was pitching my program, and I was mainly talking about how it's a sales program. Then I said, and we just rolled out this certification, no cost to you. You also get the certification. We got so many emails being like, can we buy it without the certification? I don't want that. That's not my problem. I don't want that in there. And so we think that it's a value add, but people only want to pay for what they need and nothing else. Yeah. It's a little interesting, but I would say like that's probably one of the main things where you're converting, but you're not converting all the way. If you took out frameworks, you'll probably get there. I would say too, it's one of the things I call believability, where the person may not believe what you're saying. So if you're saying you're going to help them lose 100 pounds, or you're saying you're going to help them, double their income, they may not believe you. So one of the strategies that I offer people is you have to sell support, and you have to sell, I call it togetherness, that you're going to do things together so that the client believes you. So example, say you're like, okay, I'm going to help you get a new job. You'll have a new job in 90 days. And someone's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to believe you, or I don't know if I believe you. You would say, well, we're going to do your resume together. You and I are literally going to share screen, and we're going to go line by line and do your resume together. I'll also do mock calls with you for your interview so that you can get really tailored on what exactly you're going to say. So then once you actually get the interview, your first interview, you actually are going to close, and that they're going to go with you as the candidate. And then the client can see the bridge because they're seeing all the levels of how you're going to be doing something together, versus it's not just this pipe dream that the client's going to have to figure out all on their own. So there's several like hacks and little things like that. But I would say frameworks and believability and togetherness is what I call it, are probably the top two.
Because people want to feel, supported, and they need to see how it's going to work, right? So, yeah. Okay.
Where can the listener go to learn more from you, like the next step? Because this is going to be a really good episode, but like things happen.
Oh, sure. You could tune into my show. It's called the Woman of Color Sales Podcast. I would say that's the best place. And then Dielle Charon, my name on all platforms. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Great.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Sure.
Is it time to ask your question?
Well, I have one more question before we get to sort of our audit, if you will. But was all of this your kind of your sales training or how you got to be so good at it? Was it just trial and error and you started noticing like these things are working, or was it, through books that you read or, different tactics that you tried, or kind of how did you develop this knack?
It sounds very egotistical, but literally just my own creativity. I struggled for about a year on sales calls, but then once I got it, like, I would say since I've been doing sales calls, so that's 2020, so we're what, 5 years, and I would say maybe 5 people have said no to me total, and I've done, like, maybe over 300 sales calls. Um
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I haven't read any sales books. I haven't done any because I really try to keep my own IP, like, mine, and so I haven't bought any, like, sales call, um, courses. It's really was just intuition. I love talking with people as a social worker. Also, as a social worker too, I interviewed probably over 1,000 people in the prison system, so I got really good with talking with people and asking the right question. Like, I think it's a lot of my background as a social worker, and yeah, how I thought everybody knew this, and then I would see, like, I would force my clients to send their calls in, like, their recordings, because 'cause I'm like, "Why aren't y'all closing? This is so simple." And then I was like, "Oh, y'all are not doing anything that I'm doing," and then that's when I started teaching it. But I wasn't teaching sales calls until, like, my clients were like, "Yeah, I never close." I was like, "What's wrong with you? Like, what are you doing?" I was like, "This is so easy, you just talk." And it's like, "No, you don't just talk." There's a whole process. So, yeah, I just kind of a knack for it.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Let's make sure that the listener picked up what you just said, because I heard you say the word intuition, and I'm saying this like in a heartfelt way from the bottom of my heart that I don't want you listening to this episode as DL and Jamie and I talk and to think that like it's okay just to go by intuition in a sales call or just to go like and wing it. Like we are not wing it people as far as sales calls go. And I've heard you say the word process a number of times. And I'll share quickly that the first time I learned sales was a process, it changed my life. I was working at those little yellow kiosks way back in the day from Rosetta Stone, and because I'm a language guy, love speaking foreign languages. And I remember accepting the job because I liked languages, even though it did have a commission structure for sales. It was quite a generous one at the time. I did horribly as far as selling went, for the first period of time, I definitely made it with like the hourly like base pay that they provided. And then I remember looking into the system because we could see like the territories and all the kiosks in the territories, and every week they'd have to report their numbers. So I could see that like there was one kiosk that was crushing it in sales, like tripling, quadrupling what I was selling, which meant they were making a lot of money off of like a part-time deal. And so I remember taking the day off and driving like 40 minutes to their kiosk, like walking up, introducing myself and being like, how are you posting these numbers? And it was this guy named Joe Kunkel, like this at the time he already was old. I was younger, but he had to have been like mid 50s, maybe lower 60s at the time. And like he looked at me and just said, like, Quajo, sales is a process. And once you learn the process, you will sell just fine. And like he told me some other things and he recommended a book to me. And to make the story super short, like I took his advice, I read the book, I studied the book that night and was able to see like I think within the first week like 30% increase in my sales because I just was showing up prepared because I wanted money. It wasn't even noble enough to say, I really wanted more people to learn foreign languages. Like now I have something that like I believe in, which is that like you and I were put here on earth for a reason, like with gifts and skills and passions that like we can help other people to affect transformation in their lives. And so we need to be good with Facebook ads and Instagram ads so like more people can change, right? But then I was just
Mhm.
like, I just need money. So all that is to say, I'm not sure what that is to say. I identified though when you said learning sales and the process changed your life because it did for mine too back then.
Yeah, and to that point, like, we can really be hard on ourselves, and it can feel incredibly personal getting a no or a awkward, "Oh, I'll get back to you late." Like, it's sales is very personal. You can't hide, right? Like, it's you. And so, yeah, I think when people learn, like, hey, you just were missing an ingredient to the recipe, it had nothing to do with you, it could be very healing. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, well, so for context, dear listener, we
Mhm.
were congratulating DL because I had seen on her Instagram that like this was her your third year, right? In
Mhm.
grossing over 1 million. And I was like, that sounds amazing. I've been capped out at 250,000, just slightly under there,
Mhm.
230, 225. And she said, "Oh, well, we could like do an audit, look at your process." And I was like, "Okay, sure."
Yeah, and so I would love to do that. So what is y'all's current process right now? Like, from new lead to buyer, what's your funnel?
Good question. I should say that most of my clients actually come from word of mouth.
Mhm. Not a
And
referral base.
for the I think since when did we really start getting serious about doing outreach?
Probably in the
Was that not
fall.
was that in the fall? Was it
Well,
earlier
summer.
last year?
No, it was earlier because I started doing more outreach probably May.
Yeah. So for the clients, that's still a big question mark. We're still trying to figure out how to set up a funnel that brings in new clients who we did not previously know. Now, currently, the outreach that we do or the lead magnets that we have, the people that get those lead magnets usually are a better fit to work with us, like on the course basis or like inside of a course or maybe one-on-one coaching. But some of the one-on-one coaching clients I've had have become ads management clients. So we could say if there was a loose funnel, it would be lead magnet to course to one-on-one coaching, and that has worked sometimes. Okay.
What's your income split between all your offers?
Oh, it's heavy on the ads management side.
Mhm.
Like 90, I don't know
Most
the
of
percentage,
it,
like most
yeah.
of it, like
Mm.
90, above 95% comes from ads management. Uh, well, sorry. The offers are a suite of courses. That's not true. The offers are a suite of courses and one-on-one coaching and ads management. And actually, I should just track it better, but one-on-one coaching actually makes up a little bit.
Mhm.
Let's call it 90% ads management for a good round number and
Mhm.
like 8% coaching.
Mhm.
And,
The courses are very
and the
small.
courses are very small.
For the sake of this conversation, let's just say that you have great retention for your retainer, for your ads retainer. Let's just assume, I'm assuming that's the case. And so let's assume that. Perfect. Great. You never know with service providers. And so I'm like, let's just assume you have great retention. And if not, let's fix that. But yeah, let's assume you have great retention. So that's great. So my next question is, where are you creating ads education?
Primarily Instagram. The podcast does get repurposed to YouTube. Unique content, though, that's not just uh, more concisely edited podcast, is on Instagram.
What's your promise for your retainer?
Why you gotta ask me these questions?
Well, then this would be a great time to introduce Power 75.
Okay.
So Power 75 is my messaging tool on how you communicate your offer. So similar to this conversation, we typically say, "Oh, I do business coaching," or I have this ads management offer." But what does the offer do? That's what Power 75 will communicate. And there's five, yeah, and so there's five parts of it. It's who's the person, so that's the P, who's the person, the outcome, what's the general outcome of this offer? And then you wanna think about it, it's gonna be general, short, sweet, like what you would put in an Instagram bio. You have the W, which is the skill, and so yours is very clear, a lot of people's aren't, it's not clear, where you have to think about what skill are you teaching people because people love to buy skills. You then have E's, which are exceptional angles, and this was gonna be my next question, like, what makes your ad strategy different from other people's ad strategy, or what are your ad philosophies that might be a little controversial? And then your R,
Do that one. Okay, keep going now.
yeah, perfect, and then your R is a result, and so what can somebody expect if they pay you money, what are they gonna get back? What result will they get back? And so that's the Power 75 framework. So when I ask, like, what's your result or what's your promise? or how is your offer different? Power 75 can kind of give you some language on how to articulate that.
Got you.
Mm.
Well, my offer is different because I focus heavily on testing ads. And like I believe that lots of money is left on the table when we're not testing enough different messaging versions, if you will, of ad copy and graphics. And so I'm a tester. I do all the boring testing so that we can find the one ad that outperforms the 19 or the one ad that outperforms the 49. And the closest thing I would have to a promise is that like it's like working with me, you find the highest quality lead at the lowest cost possible. It's not just a cost per lead game. It's about finding quality leads, and that has to do with well-researched messaging and graphics and testing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Highest quality lead at the lowest cost. Is that what you said?
Mhm. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
How often are you telling people that promise?
Never, probably. It's written somewhere. It might be written on my website, and it's in my brain because it's in my brain, so I think about it, but I don't say that ever.
Actually
I
saying
don't
it?
say that on the podcast, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I say that on my discovery calls, my sales
I
calls
don't
either.
recall you saying that.
Yeah. I've never heard I know a few ads people, but I've never heard of an ads person say that. I really, really like that promise. And then the thing is, you would create content about that promise. So for instance, it would be, here's the reason why you don't have high quality leads coming to your webinar. Right. So it's not just like general ads education, and it's then anchoring everything into your promise. And so and then your whole entire business, your whole entire offer is all around that one promise, then that's what you become known for. So for example, in my mastermind, Six Figure Liberation, we have 6-figure launches. That's what we teach. We'll help you have a 6-figure launch. I will literally get emails, inquiries, DM being, are you the 6-figure launch girl? It's like, yes, I am. If that's what you want, if you pay me, that's what I can help you create. And so then that's how you actually become known for a process, known for a method, and you're not just another business coach, another money coach, another weight loss coach. You actually have a unique promise that separates you from everyone else. So I say at 250, the number one issue I see, uniqueness across the board, is that you're not unique. You don't have a unique promise. You don't have unique content. You don't have unique IP frameworks, interesting things where people are like, huh, I never tried it that way before. Or, I never heard of that promise before. Like people always say, DL, you're so bold to promise 6-figure launches. I'm like, we do it all the time. Like it's not bold to me. Right. And that immediately separates me. I felt, this is probably terrible to say, but I felt so bad. This one person was like, this is the queen of launching. I looked at her sales page, 13K launch, 28K launch. I said, oh, we do that in our sleep. I was like, oh, this is not, that's how you want to feel though. Right. I literally don't have any competition. And that just means like, I know how to coach. I know how to teach. I know how to deliver, which in the done for you world, like you can, retain your expertise and you all have that skill. But the number one issue and the reason why people don't go from 250 to 5, that gap, 100% about uniqueness. The leads are there. That's how you made the money to begin with. The leads are there, but they're like, okay, what's the difference between you and somebody else? Then you're just competing off of price.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, yeah.
The question in my mind is, can I really anchor content around that promise? Because that sounds like a promise that every ads manager would have in my brain. At least.
I don't think they do, right? Like for me, I'm like, are you a launch coach if you don't help your people have 6-figure launches? There's a lot of them out there though. And so, like I just said, I don't think so. I think for me and my experience with ads, I think a lot of them operate off of any money is good money. And what I'm hearing the difference from you is like you really focus on the optimization. And so and like actually letting the dollar like actually mean more, making more money from the dollar versus just making money, period. And so with the ads people that I've talked to, they're more just so worried about getting their client any sale and just getting them any ROI that optimization is often an afterthought.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's just I'm curious like what you
Yeah.
all have heard. But yeah, that's kind of like my
Mhm.
thought.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Mhm.
sounds good. I like that spot. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
come back and study this episode.
Right?
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. But I definitely across the board, uniqueness and being different and like having different things to say about the skill you teach is the number one thing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Nice. What was that thing? Different is better than you always say that. Different is
Different is better
better
than
than
better.
different is better than better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I like that. I'm gonna start saying that. Yeah.
It's not mine. It also came from that guy that
Was
I
it
quoted in
Sean
the last
Candle? Yeah.
episode, Sean Cannell.
Yeah. Different is better than better. Okay, good.
Any other reasons why you think you've plateaued?
Well, I guess the other reason, there's two reasons actually. One is something that we're working on right now, which is that we have a suite of courses that help anyone who it just doesn't make sense for their business to hire an ads manager run ads successfully themselves. But we've been sitting on the courses and not really developed a funnel to sell them. Like, let's call it the secret behind the scenes email upsell funnel. So like we're working on that, as in like, I
Mhm.
don't know, in the past weeks, how many sales pages have we made and
Mhm.
email sequences have we written? Uh, I think, not think, but I know specifically last year I did scale higher up to like, what were we at? Like 40,000? We
Mhm.
hit two
Close there.
$40,000
Yeah.
months right in
Mhm.
there. And at the time, I was doing so with more like an agency model where I had an ads manager. Did I have two? We'll say one.
One.
And it didn't work out. Ended up dropping the ball too many times. And at the end of the day, I could not do at that level, like with that many clients, with my current systems that I had at the time. I couldn't do the quality work that like I would be proud of. So what we did is we restructured, and now it's just us managing ads for clients and building back the business. I think those are the only two things that we've really had to improve. Also, like marketing minutes would be a third.
Mhm.
Really getting good at reaching out to people that follow on Instagram, finding out what their needs are.
I love that. Can I burst your bubble? I think you should bring the agency back. I was gonna say the second reason why people are at 250 and they don't go to 5, hiring.
Okay.
Mm.
Hiring and delivery and like finding people to either coach for you or finding delivery. I have, and I could tell you after this podcast, or I could say it right now, I have the perfect person that would help you scale an agency. I have the perfect, she's one of my best friends. She's helped many agency owners hit 500,000 specifically. And so, yeah, if you wanted to put that option back on the table, I have the perfect person. And she's heard it all as far as like delivery problems, like service provider problems, she's heard it all, and so definitely be able to help you there, but that was gonna I was wondering if that was gonna come up, and it certainly did, and the second thing would be hiring, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I mean, straight up, like I have the SOPs, standard operating procedures. I've trained a handful, an actual handful. I can see their names of ads
Mhm.
managers. And ultimately, I had to decide last year, you know what? I need to be the one doing it for quality and
Did you do a test project in the hiring?
a test project. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
What was the disconnect between the test project and, like, what was happening in the system? And I don't if this is too technical, we don't have to
It's
go into
not
it.
too technical. The biggest problem is after the test project, the hiring process and even the onboarding process and the training process. Like my training's rather straightforward, like inside my own programs plus a bunch of onboarding, like, Loom systematic. What eventually would end up happening over and over again is that the quality that I would see from like a junior ads manager would start to go down, and I would end up spending more time like managing them and checking up on their accounts. But the thing
Mhm.
is like the technical skills that they would have, great, because I trained them well on the technical skills. But then after a bit, like their attention to detail or just their commitment to, I guess, finish the job and not make mistakes in client ad copies or actually continue to do like the rigorous testing needed to make
Mhm.
sure like we were as low as we could go while still having a quality client. Like that just happened too many times, and it's a small online world. And reputation is ads manager is already like a swear word in so many circles, you know? So, like, reputation is really, really key,
Mhm.
and so, like, I had
Mhm.
to make a decision, and that's as far as I got, like, maybe I could swing back to this or revisit this agency model and, like, figure out how to have an employee that provides the quality and care that, like, I would, and that would be awesome. But up until talking to you right now, like, I had basically resigned myself to the fact that, like, it would be me and Jamie managing the ads. And then, because it's our business, like, we can
Because
deliver
we
the
care
care.
about it, like, this
Yeah,
is yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
If I were to give one suggestion, it sounds like the test project wasn't stress test enough, is what I call it, where it's not a realistic in the trenches type of test project. So I'm just making something up and I know nothing about ads, but what if the test project could simulate what a week in the life was like? And so what if it's like I have no idea how it would do this, but my brain is coming up to like you have to manage three different accounts. So I want you to do the ads, whatever that means, for three different accounts. Also, one of them isn't converting. What would you say to a client? And also, how would you then fix the ads without increasing spend, all within a 72-hour time period? The test project is timed and you can't ask any questions. Go. And so then right? And so, like, for me, I just hired a new ops person. I gave her about 6 projects to do in 4 days, and I said, "Show me screenshots, give me a Loom video, and also break down all your reasonings behind your decision, and also answer these 5 customer service mock questions, and how would you respond? You have 4 days, there are no questions, go." And so I think often when that happens, like if the test project was good, but when they get into the business, they kind of like fall apart a little bit. The test project didn't like stress test them. Like I think about there's this ride at Disney World that acts like a car simulation, like where you're being crashed into the car. Like you stress test it. That's actually what you want the test project to be. And a lot of people will that my clients will do it and they're like, oh, I had 5 applications that I loved, but only 2 test projects back. Good. That's what you want. You should have then 1 or 2 people who actually make it, and that's the point. And I wanna be clear for everybody on the episode, the test project is paid. It's paid for their time.
Paid
But
people
yeah,
Yes,
to be paid.
yes.
Yeah,
l
we
a
pay.
little shift that may or may not help, but yeah.
I think what you just said off the top of your head actually is a lot closer, like having a test product that's way closer to a week in the life.
Mhm.
Because if they can think of how to communicate with the client if the going is not smooth, plus how to handle like those other requirements and not ask me questions, well then that also saves me time from a management perspective because
Right.
they're telling me what they tried to figure out
Mhm.
instead of just dropping the ball and not saying anything.
Mhm.
Or
My thing when it comes to hiring is if all these other businesses could figure it out, if all these other large ads agencies can figure it out, I'm similar to sales as a process. What if hiring is just a process? I'm just missing a piece, right? I'm just missing a puzzle. I'm like, oh, my test project wasn't good enough. Next time, like I'm gonna have to rehire a marketing person, and I know I'm like my test project didn't include what I want. Next time, I'm going to include that. I'm going to stress test that. What if it's just a piece missing? Same thing with sales.
okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
okay,
That's good.
that's extremely
Really
good.
good. Yeah. Can you run back through really quick the what the power stands for one more time for anyone that might have missed it?
Sure, yes. P stands for person. O stands for outcome. So this is the general outcome of your offer. W stands for winning skill. So what is the skill that you're teaching? E is exceptional angle. So what makes it different? What makes your offer different and unique? And then R is a result that can be measured. People ask me what is the difference between the O and the R, the outcome and the result. Outcome is general, R is specific.
Okay.
Yeah, so, like, for me and, like, my, 5-figure freedom program, the outcome would be have a full-time business, the result would be make 10K in 90 days.
Great.
My fingers are
Yeah.
furiously typing. I put the keyboard in my lap, so hopefully you can't hear the clackety clack, clackety clack, clack.